And a bad morning to y'all. This is bad morning news designed to worsen your morning and therefore your day and make you less of a cog in the machine. Joined by Daniel Hatfield Lupinit, and we're here to make the world a slightly darker place. So feel free to tune in, invite your friends, and make their days worse as well. This is brought to you by Brave Browser, the ad-resistant, tracker-resistant browsing experience. It supports creators if you download, so I hope you do. Additionally, it's brought to you by Liberty Mugs you can use to piss off your coworkers while also consuming fluid. And the Cash App, which is an app which allows you to receive and send Bitcoins and Federal Reserve notes. So consider getting any of those things, and you would be supporting the show in doing so. Also, like, subscribe, and comment, and see if you can get a conversation going down there about how much everything sucks. So I guess we're just jumping into this today.
May as well.
It's 9 minutes after the hour because we're fucking so YouTube did not allow me to start the actual broadcast with the other link. I didn't notice it until the last minute. Hey, I don't have a start broadcast button. So the fact that this is late is something you can blame on YouTube. Not like they don't have a litany of other things that you could blame on them, but this is definitely something that is their fault.
Bugs will be bugs.
Yeah, well, and also I should have noticed it first. I don't have the tools to actually do this, but whatever. So I guess the first story I'd like to bring up, because it's relatively breaking, is the explosion in Peru. We're on PeruReports.com and fucking what's the other one? Fucking TheCitizen.com. We're on PeruReports.com. A pair of strong explosions at the Ricardo Palma Clinic in Lima's San Isidro district has left some 20 people injured, 2 of them in critical condition, police said. There were 2 explosions at the clinic, one in the parking lot and another in the laboratory, said Police General Gaston Rodriguez at a press conference by the hospital. At first, firefighters believed the explosion was due to a gas leak from a running car in the basement parking lot. However, police have since said that evidence from the spot of the explosion may point to a purposeful attack. Police said they found a backpack and a buckle that could have had an explosive device. Rodriguez added that the 2 people who are critically injured may be the ones involved in the attack, according to the main hypothesis that Lima police have at this time. And that's on Peru Reports. And the Citizen seems to confirm that. It says the explosion was allegedly caused by backpacks left at the entrance of a clinic's laboratory and in a nearby parking lot. At least 20 people have been injured after an explosion at the Ricardo Palma Clinic in Lima, Peru. It is believed that the explosion was caused by 2 backpacks left at the entrance of the clinic's lab and parking lot. The suspect has been arrested, and it's not clear if any fatalities resulted from the blast, but at this moment, there are 20 severe injuries.
Well, at this moment, we can only presume there are no fatalities, which is a good thing. Let's look at the bright side. Okay, yeah, casualties, not good. Fatality 0, good.
It also means
guy
that
caught.
I wasn't very good at it.
Yeah, especially as the Peru report was saying that the 2 worst damaged individuals may have actually set it off. So maybe that one of those people in custody is in police custody while in hospital. So they don't go into detail there.
Yeah. All right. So
yeah, that's a pretty
I guess
pretty nasty start. So
well, and on that level, the reason I know about it is because I have Facebook friends all around the world, and a few of them had to mark themselves safe in Peru, and I was like, "What?
Oh,
the explosion in Peru?" And I was like, "Oh, that's perfect. We started yesterday with possibly intentionally set fires, and now we start today with possibly intentionally set explosive devices." So whatever. You know, 6 of one, half a dozen of another.
Yep. Seems like this is going to be a busy news week.
Yeah. So, what do you got? Let's start with one of yours that's possibly less dismal than a bomb injuring 20 people.
Well, let's see. I've got quite a plethora, but they're all sort of centered around crime and the police, to some extent. But this is an interesting one. Bad news for a particular politician, and oh God. I am not naming this party because I can't pronounce the name of this very pro-Welsh party. It's spelt Plaid Cymru, but I know that's not how it's pronounced, and I have no idea how to actually pronounce it.
Which one is that you sent over here?
The Wales Online one. So this is from walesonline.co.uk. It's basically live updates as a assembly member of the Welsh Assembly, Simon Thomas, resigned after being arrested on suspicion of possessing, quote, indecent images. Now, I had to dig into what that term means, but I'll go into that after I've read a little bit into the article. Assembly member Simon Thomas has resigned with immediate effect after being arrested on suspicion of possessing indecent images. The Plaid Cymru AM represented the Mid and West Wales region and has written to Lydyd and Elin Jones, and his resignation is imminent. I knew I should not have picked a Welsh story because I cannot speak Welsh. A police spokesman said an individual from Aberystwyth has been arrested on suspicion of possessing indecent images. The individual has been released on police bail for 28 days. An Assembly Commission spokeswoman said the returning officer for the region has been notified and we are working together to administer the arrangements for electing a new representative. The party chair, Alan Fred Jones, said they'd received Simon Thomas's resignation as a member of the party. We are aware of a police investigation into allegations of a serious offence. Due to that ongoing investigation, it would not be appropriate to comment further at this time.
You see,
Mr. Thomas
Alan Fred Jones. That's a nice pronounceable name.
Yeah. Mr. Thomas, Mr. Thomas, who lives in Aberystwyth, is his wife and two children. A former MP, he was elected to House of Commons and Member of Parliament for Ceredigion in 2000 and 2001. After losing his seat, he became a development manager with Technium in Pembrokeshire before becoming a special senior advisor to the Welsh Government. He was elected to the National Assembly for Wales in 2011 and again in 2016. And then it's mostly at this point, it's less about everything else regarding this at the moment seems to be more about who's going to replace him, not what the hell did he do. So I had to dig into this and go into a bunch of government websites to work out what the legal charges were around images. What kind of image can get you put in prison? And every single link ties back to child porn. So the only indecent, or bestiality, oddly enough. So the only way you can get done is if you'd possess images of children in some sort of sexual way, or animals in some sort of way, or animals. So people having those are the only two that I could find that seem to apply in Britain still. So it's worrying that, again, the way that this is being phrased obfuscates the problem. It's not just grooming gangs. There are politicians involved in these things. And it's important to recognize that fact and deal with it. And hiding it in amongst very friendly language that doesn't offend people doesn't actually solve the problem, because most people think, okay, you must have had some sort of nasty memes or something, yeah? But no, when it comes to images, it's very specific as to what qualifies as I think it was indecent, was the term that they use. So it's really quite worrying that they have to obfuscate the fact in order to make it palatable. I'm not going to. This guy had highly likely had some extremely dodgy photos, which were likely to include animals or kids. One or the other. And the probability is higher to the latter, not the former. Oh, wait, well, no, hang on, sorry. This is Wales.
Well, and on that level, I would much rather it be a non-human animal than a human child. So, I mean,
so would I. And it is sort of the stereotype among, like, for the British at least, I guess, would be Scots wear basically kilts. The British, every region has a different insult for another region, but the Welsh are the sheepshaggers to the British.
Oh, and also
that's basically the joke.
The thing is pronounced, if I remember correctly, Plaid Cymru, and it means like Welsh party essentially.
Yeah, it's basically the pro Wales party.
Okay, yeah. So I still remember like a few Welsh words. Okay, that's cool. So I guess on that level, let's jump from that to your facial recognition systems police thing. And while you read that, I'll pull up a few things related to the police that I had lined up for today.
Sounds good. Right, give me a second while I pull it up. This is from the BBC. Police facial recognition system faces legal challenge by Gatian Portal. A legal challenge against the use of automatic facial recognition technology by police has been launched by Civil Liberties Group. Automatic facial recognition uses CCTV or surveillance cameras to record and compare facial characteristics with images on police databases. Lawyers for Big Brother Watch argue the use of AFR breaches the rights of individuals under the Human Rights Act. The Metropolitan Police say the technology will help keep London safe. The system is being piloted in London with 3 other forces, Humberside, South Wales, and Leicestershire, also trialing the technology. Very intrusive. However, it has been proven controversial, with one watchdog describing its use in public places as, quote, very intrusive. Court documents seen by the BBC also claim the Home Office has failed in its duty to properly regulate AFR use. Manufacturers of the systems say they can monitor multiple cameras in real time, quote, matching thousands of faces a minute with images already held by the police, often mugshots taken of suspects who have been taken into custody. However, Big Brother Watch says Met's own research published in May shows that during trials, only 2 genuine matches were made out of 104 system alerts.
Mm-hmm.
So less than 2%, let's say. So not really that good an accuracy record, really. But hey, the group also takes issue with the length of time the images gathered by AFR held. There's 3 side reports saying face recognition police tools staggeringly inaccurate. Can facial recognition fit with a fair society? And facial recognition databases, quote, risks targeting innocent people. The Met piloted the system at Notting Hill Carnival in 2016-17, at the Cenotaph on Memorial Sunday, and at Westfield Shopping Centre in Stratford last month. Further trials are planned. The force says the technology is an extremely valuable tool. Meanwhile, in South Wales, police used AFR at least 18 times between May 2017 and March 2018, according to court documents. Cameras in Cardiff city centre and at a demonstration at a, quote, arms fair were used to gather the images of members of the public. As of April this year, AFR generated 2,451 alerts, with only 234 proving accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly better success rate, but only just. And to be fair, that is a more significant sample size.
Well, right, but
police officers,
they don't need it. Let me they don't even need a good success rate here, because they've, the governments have unlimited funding essentially, and B, they can use this as an excuse to test this until it does work. And so, like, people who expect this to work immediately, yeah, they're going to be disappointed. But people who want this to be tested for a while and don't really care about the convenience, the emotional and mental states of people, or the massive costs to tax victims, those sorts of people who don't care about that, don't give a shit about that. They just want this thing to be tested until it does get a good conviction rate, and then they'll be like, oh, but see, all that other stuff was worth it. Ends justify the means. We did it.
Here's another little nice one. Police officers stopped 31 people who had been incorrectly identified and asked them to prove their identity. So if you don't have show me your papers. Lawyers for Big Brother Watch argue the use of...
Or in this case, like, oi, where are your papers, mate?
Lawyers for Big Brother Watch argue the use of AFR breaches the rights of individuals under the Human Rights Act, including the right to privacy and freedom of expression. Silky Carlo, director of the Civil Liberties Group, said, when the police use facial recognition surveillance, they subject thousands of people in an area to highly sensitive identity checks without consent. We are hoping the court will intervene so the lawless use of facial recognition can be stopped. It's crucial our public freedoms are protected. However, it is likely the Met and other police forces will welcome the opportunity to argue the case for AFR and begin to put it on a solid legal footing alongside other unique characteristics stored on databases such as fingerprints and DNA. It comes after the body that advises London Mayor Sadiq Khan on policing and ethics last week called on the Met to be more open about its use of AFR and to set out where and when it will be used before undertaking any further pilots. Dr. Suzanne Shale, who chairs the London Policing Ethics Panel, said, we have made a series of key recommendations which we think should be addressed before any further trials are carried out. We believe it is important facial recognition technology remains the subject of ethical scrutiny. And that's basically the end of the story. So, yeah, Big Brother 2.0 coming to a shopping center near you.
And remember, by the way, okay, so remember on Shit Shooting Sunday a while back when you and I were like chopping it up about the New World Order and like the whole thing like that, like maybe 3 or 4 times ago, and I started telling you about these smart cities. Well,
oh yeah, where they basically record everything and you have a social cred and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Well, their test. I fucking keep forgetting what the city is called, but when I remember, I'll obviously start saying that. But there's a smart city being built in the Middle East. That's basically going to be a smart country, and it's going to be a tiny little country thing that's like self-sustaining and all that. But it's going to be an entire smart everything thing. And they want these sorts of cameras.
Yeah, I can believe that. And they want
these sorts of cameras there.
Yeah, I know, but I'm sure people will enjoy that robot gilded cage. But I don't know how easy it is to fully automate every single need and want. And
but it's not designed to do that.
No, I know it's not, but that's what it needs to. If it's going to be fully self-sustaining, that's what it needs to do.
I mean, kind of. What this is designed to do, like the new city, at least what they say it's designed to do, because obviously I think it has more nefarious purposes, is to be a free and open democracy and a free market zone. And so but they're doing it by having an EID on the blockchain, like Estonia. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but TrueStream
Yeah, a
Media
little.
covered it pretty well.
Yeah. But I mean with these it's nothing that new, to be honest. These are the same sorts of cameras that
Oh,
or systems that they use at the border. These are the same
I
sorts of things that they use to say that you are who you say you are when you go through
yeah.
checkpoints.
And I recognize that, but what I'm saying is that is that they're testing this on a large scale so that they can have a broader population than, like, basically starting to test it in a city like that, and then, like, as far as I'm concerned, this is what they're doing anyway. Like, total speculation here, but um,
Mm,
they're testing it here, like everywhere, pretty much in very small dosages. I think they have some of these similar cameras in places like LA and New York. Um,
mm.
and they're testing it in those major areas, in many of them, so that they can say that the technology works when they start building these smart cities from the ground up.
Mm.
That's what I would suspect
True.
anyway.
Yeah, but this is part of the problem. The cases at the moment are showing a 10% success rate of correct identification. If you're that poor at being able to say X person is X person, then I'm sorry, you're never going to, are you? You're never going to get it that right. It's obviously going to have some issues. And I mean, this is part of the reason why I don't use facial recognition technology is I don't trust it to be 100% accurate at this point in time. I know it can get it wrong.
And plus the APIs, it's really fucking funny. I would suggest everybody, I forget the fucking channel name right now. I'll look it up and say it in a few minutes. But there's this channel that I found out about through William Osman, and I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a technologist, sort of pseudo inventor guy, and he makes absurd things. And so I found other absurd makers through him, and one of them recently made a Trigger Me Elmo, which hurls racial epithets at people given their race. And
Trigger Me Elmo.
and his Trigger Me Elmo uses a publicly available facial recognition API, and it worked every time. So
seriously,
I mean, yeah, well, it worked for what they were designing it for. It didn't work to say who is what. It had like a confidence level on its algorithm.
Yeah.
It just like set what demographics they were. So like
okay, so it used like bone structure and certain features between that are shared between anthropomorphic types.
Yeah. So like it the API pulled images from publicly available server, which he had to like bounce it to. I think he had to host his own server in order to do it, and he used that to essentially host a bunch of images that the API could port over for who qualified specifically as what. And then eventually he could hold up like a picture of Terry Crews and it would identify an African American, and it would always identify him and his mother as Asian. And it was like that sort of thing. And so it worked, but it worked for like general demographics, and it's getting to the point.
It didn't work for.
Well, I mean, it didn't
work for specific individuals. Although, to be honest, no,
because all it was designed to do is hurl racial epithets. This doll, anyway. So, but all you would need to do then is refine it to where you could have specific characteristics be the thing it's trying to recognize, like these eyes this proximal to one another, this nose this proximal to the bottom of chin, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then you would need
measurements. You get a structural bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, I mean, there's always the possibility that this is going to get very good very quickly.
Yeah. Very true.
And the more people test it, the faster it gets better.
Oh, yeah, that's very true. The more data something has, the better it becomes.
Yeah.
And the harder it becomes to break.
And stronger. Because then we got all four, harder, better, faster, stronger.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the
There's
wider the database, yeah, the wider the database, the more likely it'll work. But part of the problem, I think, if trialing it in London or any of these hotspots where there's a lot of tourism, is not all those people are going to be British, and all those people are going to be on record. Most of those people probably won't even be in the country tomorrow. It's London has a lot of tourism at any given point in time. There's thousands of people who are from another nation coming in. Are you going to be tracking them? Is that valid something for them to expect if they're going into your country to be constantly monitored by the police and the police would know exactly who they are? Is that, or at least should, according to the government, probably? I mean, these are considerations that I think nobody is really taking into account. Because I doubt the Germans particularly would be impressed if they knew they were being traced up and down every corridor, because they still have quite a strong memory of the Stasi, and they know that it's not fun to lose your privacy and lose things like uh, being able to keep your identity safe at and where you are safe as well. They
Yeah.
really do fight hard against marketing. This kind of thing they'd fight even harder against.
Yeah. Well, and for good reason. I mean, let's I guess switch into this other story here. We got in America, it like because this America's next. America's always next to be the sort of place that this thing is put in, because you know Americans are largely oblivious. And all you have to do is get a largely oblivious population to, get free rewards at Walgreens for, participating in this program, and they'll say yes. So, but this is the sort of thing that happens here, and the sort of thing that would probably happen more if this facial recognition and even worse object recognition happened here. It's taxpayers to be held liable after cops mistake vitamins for opioids and jail innocent mom for months. An innocent mom who was kidnapped and caged for 5 months after cops mistook vitamins for drugs is suing police to make sure no one else suffers the same fate. Tampa, Florida. This is on the freethoughtproject.com. Rebecca Shaw, a mother of 4 who's never been in trouble with the law before, ended up spending 5 months in jail because a field drug test falsely identified her vitamins as opioids. Now this innocent mom is making sure no one else suffers the same injustice. 3 years ago, Rebecca's car ran out of gas and she was stranded on the side of the road. When an officer pulled up behind her, she was hoping she would get some help. However, instead, she was wrongly accused of a crime, kidnapped and thrown in a cage away from her family for 5 months. My kids were devastated. I was away for 5 months. I cried constantly, Shaw told Fox 13 News. Shaw is now suing the Pasco County Sheriff's Office and the manufacturer of the faulty drug test kit used to steal her freedom. This is a lucrative business for these manufacturers to be peddling their faulty products to law enforcement agencies. They're lucrative and they know these tests are not working, said Caitlin Costa, Shaw's attorney. The original incident happened in September of 2015, and Shaw, not thinking she was doing anything wrong, made a mistake and allowed the officer to search her car. When he did, he found vitamins and accused her of having oxy. He said they don't look like vitamins, they look like oxycodone, Rebecca told Fox 13. The officer immediately ran a field drug test on the pills and found a positive reading for the opiates. Shaw is one of many women and men to suffer horrific fates at the hands of negligent cops and their continued use of faulty field drug test kits. In fact, tens of thousands have been convicted and served time, even earning the black mark of a felony for crimes they likely didn't commit, according to a report, because the cases against them relied on horribly unreliable field drug test kits. So there's more to this, and there's a video you can see where she's being specific about this. And there's also a video at the bottom of the page about these faulty testing kits on Fox 13. And I would recommend everybody go check this out and see that this woman was innocent and stripped from her children and thrown in a cage for a war on drugs that shouldn't even continue to be fought. and for, essentially a cop's mistake and continued mistake, if not outright specific and direct error that they meant to make. So it's always fun to
Potentially.
remember that.
True. I mean, I know you're the pessimist and I'm the optimist here, but I do tend to err on the idea that you should not attribute to malice that which can just as easily be attributed to negligence or stupidity.
Sure. Oh, and I am
And
curious, by the way, how many cops, like, because I see these images on Twitter all the time, and it'd be interesting to get some actual inside perspective while we're talking about bullshit flat feet. Why don't we discuss, like, from your perspective, how many of these arrests for quote weapons happen for bullshit like having a trowel or something or a screwdriver?
what, the ones in Britain?
Yes, yeah.
Well, I know that they do happen, and again, I did listen to. I'm going to plug Sargon here for a second because he did an interview with a former. Oh no, it wasn't. Actually, it may have been Uzlu. Did an interview with a police or basically a member of HR in the police, and I think he'd been beat as well, so he knew both sides of the ropes. He was a proper cop for Britain, and he
and by beat,
went
just
in.
for people who don't know that slang, you mean beat cop.
Yeah, basically a beat cop, a proper Bobby for a while, and then went into other parts of the service. I think he was working HR when he was discussing this on YouTube. And he basically goes into the minutiae of why the police are struggling now because of certain rulings and laws that are in place, like the effective right not to be offended, and the it was, I think it was the Stevenson report. It was basically about Stephen Lawrence, who was killed in a well, there's always been a bunch of questions around exactly what happened with Stephen Lawrence, but I think the main narrative is that it was he was killed by the cops, and the outcome of the report is that the Met was effectively institutionally racist and needed to do something about it. And they created whole policies to resolve this, and it's wound up creating an entirely new kind of command structure within the police itself over the course of the past 15 years or so. So, I mean, again, any of these things take time to metastasize into an actual problem. But when they do, they become horrific, especially if you don't see the warning signs. Very hard to solve because you have to wind up undoing lots of laws. And funny thing about government, once they've got a law in place, it takes a lot of pressure to let them get rid of it.
Yeah, my mother always said when I was growing up, and this might contributed to me being an anarchist now, but she always said when I was growing up that government's very good at making laws, but not very good at taking them away.
Yeah, that seemed to be a sentiment, I think, within a couple of generations at least worth of people, to be honest. I know my grandparents had a very similar sentiment.
Well, and the thing is, like, she was a semi-hippie, but like her mother and father ran a business, so she couldn't like be a full hippie because she knew how shit that was.
Yeah, but you mentioned earlier that the things from Europe tend to come over to America. Yeah.
Yeah, and sort of vice versa, but America likes quote importing technology that already works. So
true, but one thing that Britain seems to have imported is custody deaths.
Police custody deaths? You mean?
Yeah. So now I want to be very clear on this. The increase that's being reported does not necessarily reflect the actual scale of the problem, okay?
And it also doesn't necessarily reflect, just to be clear, all cops and all cops what they do,
No.
but it's certainly not being helped by most cops, and the fact that the system allows these things to go on without much action being taken against specific individual cops. So.
And the reason that claim can be made is an increase in the rate of something like this can often be attributed to a decrease in concerns about facing any punishment for such an incident. Now, it could also be down to very, very bad training. So it's just it could just be something that could be fairly easily resolved with the training regime, but investigations would need to be done. But this is from the Independent, by Mary Bowman, or May Bowman even. There's been a police custody deaths hit highest level in a decade after 64% increase in a year. Okay, sharp spike in deaths in or following police custody raises concerns about use of force against people with mental health issues. Now, among the high-profile deaths were 20-year-old Rashawn Charles, who died after being chased and apprehended by police last summer in London. Right. Deaths in or following police custody have hit a 10-year high, with the figure soaring by more than 64% in the past year, new data shows. Figures published by the Independent Office for Police Conduct show there were 23 police custody deaths in 2017 and 18, compared with just 14 the year before, marking a sharp spike amid a trend of following numbers over the last decade. So yeah, let's just pause for a second. America, that number, you have to add another naught at least onto the end of it to get any kind of representation. Maybe even two to some. I mean, you're looking at anywhere between a magnitude greater to like well over five-fold greater. So it's Britain worries about these things when they hit the mid-20s. So that's an important thing to remember about if you're going to have a state, how you have to keep it in check. If you let it grow and actually not pay attention to these things, then it will just ignore them forever. But if you keep them on top of it all the time, then they can't really do that if the people actually give a shit. So anyway, of the 23 fatalities, 17 had been restrained or had force used against them by police or others before their deaths. More than half, 12, had mental health concerns, and over 75%, 18, had links to drugs and or alcohol. Of the 17 who were restrained, 9 were white and 8 were black, which will fuel existing concerns that racial stereotyping is playing a role in deaths that occur in custody across England and Wales. Now, not quite sure how that is going to fuel that if it's actually closer to 60-40, unless they're going to make the claim that it's proportionality that matters rather than some other factor that isn't anything to do with race. Campaigners said the rise in police custody deaths illustrated the impact of historic underfunding in health and community services, and said the disproportionality in the use of force against black people added to the irrefutable evidence of structural racism in policing practices. But let's ignore those 9 white guys, yeah? Among the high-profile deaths were 20-year-old Rashawn Charles, who died after being chased and apprehended by police in Hackney, London last summer. A post-mortem examination found Mr. Charles, who was a father to a young daughter, died during a struggle due to a blocked-up airway caused by a small package containing a mixture of caffeine and paracetamol. So basically, he swallowed a flu remedy. A second fatality was Kevin Clark, 35, who died after coming in contact with police during a mental health crisis on a residential street in Lewisham in March. Deborah Coles, director of Inquest, said the figures were an indictment of the failing systems of investigation, learning, and accountability which follow police-related deaths. Too many highly vulnerable people with mental ill health and addictions are ending up in the criminal justice system. So the solution does not lie with policing, she continued. Many of these preventable deaths illustrate the impact of austerity and the historic underfunding of health and community services. Right. The disproportionality in the use of force against black people adds to the irrefutable evidence of structural racism embedded in policing practices. Clearly, real systemic change remains to be seen. Liberal Democrat, and also, as an aside, apparently Amber Rudd is under new pressure after the UN criticized racism of British police. So because all of these people are coming out saying that they're racist, and because their own reviews have reported this as racist, historically, it's been assumed as rote that they must be racist. And even if they're doing things to fix the problems, it doesn't matter. They're still racist. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't at this point, if you're a cop. And I feel sorry for these guys to some extent, because I feel sorry for anybody who's accused of false racism. I don't feel sorry for anybody who's legitimately racist and gets accused of it. But to blanket ban entire forces and say, well, to tar them all this way just seems extravagant. Anyway, Liberal Democrat Home Affairs spokesman Ed Davies said the fact most of those who died had mental health problems or issues with alcohol or drugs showed there must be more cooperation between police forces and the NHS. While the police will be the first to admit they want to do better, Parliament needs to ask the question. When we ask the police to act as proxy mental health nurses, are we asking too much of officers, he said. Liberal Democrats demand better from the NHS and a much better deal for the people with mental health problems. And in custody cases, that should mean a greater and early involvement of the NHS. So let's all turn it over to the health services. Overall, the IOPC recorded a total of 283 deaths following police contact. Aside from the 23 in or following police custody, there were 4 police shootings, 3 of which were terrorism-related, 29 related to road traffic accidents, 57 apparent suicides following custody, and 170, quote, other deaths following police contact. What other stands for, I have no idea. The IOPC says the rise in deaths in custody was concerning, and that many of the fatalities present a complex and challenging set of factors, namely a prevalence of links to drugs and alcohol and mental health concerns. Now, quick point though, a total of 283 deaths out of a total population of 72 million, compared to roughly 11 or to 2,200 deaths out of a population of 300 million. So those are the proportions we're dealing with for death by cop, okay, in some way, shape, or form. And I think the proportionality actually makes Britain less safe from a police perspective, even though there's less actual likelihood of you dying in custody. Just from a statistical perspective on a top line. It's still infinitesimal.
Just raw numbers.
It's still, yeah, just from a raw numbers perspective. I mean, I'm not claiming it's statistically relevant in any way, shape, or form. It's relevant in the extreme, just like all gun violence in the States is statistically irrelevant. But it's still an interesting fact. And that's most of this at the moment. It does go on for a little bit more on these deaths, but you get the picture. It's a bad thing that it's increased by over 50%. Don't get me wrong, but we're talking from a point of view of scale. That specific type of death is quite small compared to what has happened in the States, and in other places on a more routine basis.
Yeah. Well, and in the States, there's much less likelihood that police will face any sort of justice. Like,
true.
Okay, so let me just read this article to sort of highlight the mentality of U.S. police. Fucking watch Cops try to kill suspect by firing into Trader Joe's front door and kill innocent woman instead. This is on the Free Thought Project. Again, an innocent woman was shot and killed in front of a Trader Joe's when police officers exchanged gunfire with a suspect following a chase. Silver Lake, California. Police spokesperson has admitted that the only victim who died after a shooting that turned into a hostage situation at a Trader Joe's store in South Los Angeles was fatally shot by officers who fired a hail of bullets at the storefront. Melita Corrado, 27, was an assistant manager at the grocery store, and her life ended tragically when her workplace became the scene where a police chase ended and officers started to exchange gunfire with the suspect they had been pursuing. The Los Angeles Police Department has been surprisingly open with the public, and Police Chief Mitchell Moore, I think that's how you pronounce it, might be Michael though, admitted on Tuesday that the bullets that struck and killed Corrado were fired by LAPD officers. The source of that round we've recovered it, and ballistically we believe it's from one of the two officers, Moore said. The fatal bullet first hit Corrado's arm, then entered her body. The police chief attempted to defend the actions of the officers by claiming that they, quote, had to make a split-second decision. I'm here to say that this is the worst decision that any officer ever wishes to have to make. Fucking Corrado initially walked outside of the grocery store to ascertain what was happening when it became the place where a vicious police chase ended on Saturday, and as soon as gunfire was exchanged and she was shot by officers, she went back inside and collapsed behind the manager's desk, where she bled to death. Medical aid was not immediately called for Corrado, and it is unclear if the officers even realized that she had been wounded because they were so focused on Jean Evan Atkins, 28, who was the suspect in their chase. The ordeal began when Atkins reportedly opened fire on both his 76-year-old grandmother and his 17-year-old girlfriend. Atkins' cousin, Charleo England, told the Orange County Register that she believes an argument broke out because Atkins' grandmother did not approve of his young girlfriend and did not want her inside the house. After he fired multiple shots at his grandmother, Atkins took the young girl, who suffered a bullet wound to the head, with him when he left, which made him a suspect for both kidnapping and attempted murder. The two women have since been taken to the hospital, where they are said to be in critical condition. When police officers located Atkins' vehicle and began pursuing it, the chase ended in front of the Trader Joe's store when Atkins crashed into a pole. He got out of his car and began shooting at the officers who were on the scene and exchanged gunfire. Atkins then went into the grocery store to take cover, which resulted in a 3-hour standoff with police, and dozens of citizens were taken hostage. Corrado, who was among the hostages, and now the question, Corrado was among the hostages, and now the question remains as to whether her life could have been saved if she had received immediate medical attention. So, essentially, a cop shot and killed somebody, and the police chief is trying to make the officer sound sympathetic, even though he admits that it was a bad decision. He's trying to make it sound sympathetic to just open fire on a storefront. So I guess the lesson here is that officers will stick by each other even when they do something that any civilian would be charged for.
Yeah, it's a bit mental, really, when you think about it. I mean, but it's interesting that they're being so open about what happened. It is rather interesting. I mean, they know they've got basically their version of benefit of the doubt. We had a police chase. We were protecting the people, and somebody got caught in the crossfire. We're sorry.
And it's like that South Park episode.
Exactly. That was what I was trying to evoke there.
Okay, there we go.
But yeah, it's that kind of principle, though. Sorry. And sometimes sorry just doesn't bloody cut it. You gotta be more careful than that.
And the officer isn't going to jail. The officer isn't going to jail for opening fire at a building. Building. He's with people in it. Like, he's not going to face any penalties except possibly being fired. Like, that should be atrocious to anybody with a conscience.
It should be.
Yeah.
I
But
think there's
anyway, we're
one
about
that
to need to wrap this up. So try like whatever this next story is, try to cover it quickly, or
will
we
do.
will cover it tomorrow morning.
I'll try and cover this one as quickly as I can, but I think
Cool.
it may deserve tomorrow morning, to be honest, because this one's about Lavoy Finicum.
Well, then let's tease it for tomorrow morning. Let's
All right,
let's
fair
like
enough.
read
Well,
the first like paragraph or two, and then we'll dive in like as soon as tomorrow morning happens. That is, unless another terrorist attack happens in Peru, because I'm assuming that's what this is. Somebody's going to take responsibility for that, guaranteed.
I'm sure, but yeah, if you go back to January 2016, in Oregon, there was a bit of a shootout between well, I say shootout. It was a bit of a shoot up of FBI on a few cars trying to go between a refuge in Grant County in Oregon. And one of the men, Robert Finicum, or Robert Lavoy Finicum, um, was shot by state law officers. And certain things have been going, certain people are going in for trial now, specifically FBI agents who've been accused of lying about the shooting. So I think it's probably worth using that as a teaser for tomorrow, because this one looks like it could be pretty gold. And it's NPR as well, so it's interesting that they are they're rocking the boat on this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess that's a good place to end this then. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to the 100 likes on Facebook. Thank you to all the people who have subscribed and chosen to like and comment and be here for these videos. We will be getting the official Bad Morning News channel very shortly. And when we do, I'll update y'all so you can specifically subscribe to that if you're interested. But with that being said, I hope y'all have a bad morning and a bad day. And if you're around the world, bad whatever time of day it is for you. It's morning somewhere though, so just try to listen to this then, I guess. And remember, if you have a story you want us to cover, you can send it to us. So just find us at one of our places that we are. And just send us a link, and we'll see if we can cover whatever it is. As long as it's a bad morning, we will cover it. Yep, be well. Smash the state, fuck the system.
Bad morning to you all.